Good morning. I am Aishwarya Devi, Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering from Dr. MGR Educational Research Institute. Today we are going to talk about object-oriented programming. The basic concept is an object has behaviors. In old style programming, the data is completely passive. Functions could manipulate any data. But in OOPS concept, we have object contains both data and methods that manipulate that data. So here object is active, not passive. It does things. And also an object is responsible for its own data. That is, it can expose the data to other objects. The other concept is an object as state. An object contains both data and methods which manipulates data. Here the data represents the state of the object. Data can also describe relationships between object and other objects. For example, we can take in banking, checking account is an object which has different states, that is balance, that is the internal state of the account, and owner, that is the object representing a person. For example, if we take a game, a bunny rabbit stands as an object. Here this creates an object representing a rabbit which has data, three things, that is how hungry it is, how frightened it is, where it is. So here the methods we can describe are eat, hide, run, dig. The next concept is classes describe objects. Every object belongs to a class. An object may have fields or variables. So here the class describes those fields, and also an object may have methods. So the class describes those methods. And a class is like a template or cookie cutter. So here the class constructor to make objects. The next concept is classes are like abstract data types. So here in abstract data type, some data representing an object or thing, and also the operations on that data. So here the checking account, the various operations done are deposit, withdraw, get balance. So here the classes enforce this bundling together, and if all data values are private, a class can also enforce the rule that is defined operations are the only ones permitted on the data. For example, here we are taking employee as the class. So the various fields used in the employee class are string name and salary. The basic constructor we are using is employee, string n, double n. So the various methods we are using is pay method. So here we are the method of paying the amount salary to the employee is through check, DD, or through cash. So these are the paying methods used in this class employee. So the approximate terminology we are using here it are object is represented as an instance, and instance variable is represented as field, function is defined as a method, and if you are calling a function, that is sending a message to an object, and these are all approximately true. The next concept is classes form a hierarchy. So here hierarchy is a tree-like structure arranged, where classes are arranged in a tree-like structure. So the class at the root is named as object. So except in every class except object as a superclass. A class may have several ancestors. up to object. When you define a class, you specify its superclass, and you don't specify a superclass object. Object is assumed. Every class may have one or more subclasses. So here we are giving an example of a hierarchy. This contains container, panel, scroll pane, window. Again it is subdivided into dialog frame. Again dialog is subdivided into file dialog. So here file dialog is a dialog. Again it is a window which comes under container. So this is like a tree like structure. So here classes are divided like this. So in the next concept is objects inherit from superclasses. So a class describes fields and methods. So objects of that class are those fields and methods, but an object also inherits. It inherits the fields described in the class superclasses and methods described in the class superclasses. So a class is not a complete description of its objects. So here we are giving an example of inheritance through a program. So a class person which has the fields name and age, and here we are using a method, birthday method. Next class we are using employee, where the fields are salary. So here the method is pay method. So the methods here, birthday is a method and pay is also a method, where birthday which can be a first or second or third, so it can be celebrated in a house or hotel. But in pay method we can pay the salary through check or DD or cash. Next, the concept is objects must be created. First you have to initialize n, which is an integer variable. It allocates space to hold a value for n. Then employee secretary. Here the employee is a type where it allocates space to hold a reference to an employee. Next, secretary equal to new employee. So this allocates space to hold a value for the employee, where the employee is null. Now how to declare and create objects. So here employee secretary is declares the secretary and allocates a space for new employee, and employee secretary equal to new employee. It does both, but the secretary is still blank. Now how to reference a field or method. Here class, inside a class no dots are necessary, and outside a class we must give the if condition whether which birthday the method lies. This object. So the next concept, this object is represents, this is an extra parameter to the method. A variable can hold subclass objects. Here B is a subclass of A. So A objects can be assigned to A variables and B objects can be assigned to B variables. Similarly, B objects can be assigned to A and A objects can be assigned to B variables. You can cast B variable equal to B A object. In this case, Java does a runtime check. The next concept is methods can be overridden. So here we are writing a program, class bird extends animal, and the method we are using is flying. So flying from source to destination. And another class penguin, it extends bird. Here also we are using the method fly method. So birds can fly except penguins. Don't call functions, send messages. Here you cannot tell without studying the program which method actually gets used. The same statement may result in different methods being used at different times. How to use overridden methods? So here class family member which extends person and it has a birthday method. So here overridden, the super dot is called the overridden method. Next concept is constructors make objects. Every class is a constructor to make its objects. Here new is a keyword we are using to call a constructor. So secretary equal to new employee. Also Java provides a default constructor with no arguments. It sets all the world's fields of the new object to 0. The syntax for writing constructors is almost like the writing methods. Next, syntax for constructors. Do not use a return type and a name. Use only the class name. You can supply arguments. Next, give field and parameter the same name. So here class person string name int age. So person as string name int age. This dot name. So using the same name is a common and useful convention. Constructor chaining. So if an employee is a person and a person is an object, then new employee, the employee constructor calls a person constructor, the person constructor calls the object constructor, and again the object constructor creates a new object. The person constructor adds its own stuff to the object. The employee constructor adds its own stuff to the person. So the case of vanishing constructor. Here Java provides the default constructor which provides no arguments. To write any constructor for a class, Java does not provide a default constructor. Adding a perfectly good constructor can break a constructor chain. You may need to fix the chain. Classes can have fields and methods. Usually a class describes fields which is variables and methods for its objects called as instances. These are called as instant variables and instance methods. A class can have its own fields and methods. These are called class variables and class methods. So there is exactly one copy of a class variable, not one per object. Usually the special keyword we are using is static, that a field or method belongs to the class instead of to objects. For defining a class variable, here we are using in the program static int population. So we can restrict access. So always strive for a narrow interface. We have to follow the principle of information hiding. The caller should know as little as possible about how the method does its job. The next is the method should know little or nothing about where or why it is being called. Make the class access should be private. Your class is responsible for its own data and don't allow other classes to screw it up. The various kinds of access. Java provides 4 levels of access. The first one is public. So here it is available everywhere, and the next one is protected, which is available within the package, that is in the same subdirectory and to all subclasses. The next one is default, available within the package, and the last one is private. It is only available within the class itself. The default is called as a package visibility. In small programs it is not necessary. Thank you.